In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to build KDB Plus trader dashboards. I'm going to use our software tool Pulse to create a number of dashboards, including a trade blotter, a live price chart, and a trading quote chart. I'm going to go from inputting the database queries to chart customization. In particular, to give you an overview, I will cover what Pulse is, the problem it's designed to solve, how we're hoping to solve it, and then I'm going to demonstrate building a number of dashboards. These will include a real-time trade blotter, a historic trade blotter, live stock price charts, and a latest price display. At the end, I'll give a quick recap and outline our roadmap for where development of Pulse is headed. Pulse is a tool to allow real-time data visualization. In particular, it allows individuals or small teams to create and share real-time interactive dashboards with their team or with their wider company. A particular problem that we identified and we believe we've created a good solution for is for trading dashboards. So I've previously worked at a number of banks, and while there I typically worked with traders or quants that were developing applications or little applets to help traders. So let's look at the specific problem. Traders typically have a multi-monitor setup, as shown in the picture. On those monitors, they will have a large number of applications open at once, and these applications will typically fall into 3 or 4 categories. Some will give context, so it will be BBC News, Bloomberg News, and prices of the wider market. Some will allow you to take action. Typically, these will be an internal app as they run a platform, and it will allow them to either change their algo configuration or to execute trades. Another group of applications will give position, and this could be the current net position. So maybe they have 5,000 units of Google stock in their warehouse that they want rid of, or it could show their P&L, whether that's for the last 5 minutes, for the day, or per client. And lastly, and you could consider this under position, is their trades. But quite often, this is so specialized and occurs so often, I like to put it as a 4th category. So when you look at the monitors for a given trader, typically the applications will fall under one of these 4 categories. Now, the action category is typically internally developed and highly specialized to each firm, but the other ones will be more generic and they're less specialized to that particular firm. They may have teams working on it, but they may also have a lot of varying demands for specific visualizations. And this is where Pulse is a very useful tool for displaying the context, position, or trades, especially in real time. Let's now dive in and build our dashboard. If you go to timestore.com and click on Pulse, you can then click download, and download, if you're on Windows, the installer is handy, or you can download the zip or the jar. You would then run the setup and it will install Pulse to your start menu. I can then type Pulse into the start menu and it will open a terminal that looks something like this. It may automatically open your browser, otherwise take the address and enter that into your location bar. When you first open Pulse, it may take you to this welcome screen. If you go into dashboards, it will show some example dashboards that are installed already, or it will list some that may be added. Under data connections, there'll be one existing demo connection that comes internally out of the box. You will then want to add your own connection. So I go add connection, KDB, localhost 5000. I actually already have a KDB instance running, and you can click test and add, and it will add my KDB instance. Now that we've added the connection, we can go to the SQL editor, make sure to select your new database, and we can enter commands. You can now take the code from the website and paste it into the editor. I then click send query, and it will create the tables trades and hist. So you can see here there's a generate trade function which generates new entries, and on a timer I'm inserting those new entries to a table called trades. I've also generated a historic table called hist of trades for the last week. If I highlight the -10 sublist trades, I can press Ctrl and A to run just that code. And if I keep pressing it, you can see that the trades table is receiving new entries. I can now begin to create a dashboard. To create a dashboard, go into Dashboards and click Add Dashboard. This will create a new entry, in this case called Ivory, that I can now edit. So I click on Ivory, click on Design Mode to toggle Design Mode, and at the top a new bar appears, allowing me to add components. We want to create a real-time trade blotter, which is a table. So I click Table. By default, it fills with an example query that has no effect on your database. It merely queries in memory. And it knew it was KDB, so it made up the select. Let's get rid of that and do a -10 sublist trades to show our own data. I press Ctrl E to update the query. And I can see that it's now our own data ticking in. And I want to customize this query. Quite often what I do is have a dashboard in one tab and I open the editor in the other. This allows me to run small queries that may help me. In this case, I'm going to get the column names. So that I can easily do the select, but select just a subset of columns I want. So select the column names from trades, update, and it will select them all. I only want the latest, so this doesn't fill too many pages. At the bottom, I click the little light bulb icon, and I select all, and you can see there's 1,488 rows. Most people won't need this amount, so I'll do where I is less than max I, and I'll show the last 500. And you say, oh, sorry, where I is greater. And you can see that it's showing the last 500. It looks fine, it looks okay. But let's customize the appearance a little. So on the sim column, I like to turn on the tags so that each distinct name receives a particular color. It makes it easier to see, for example, that Tesla is a dark green. Under quantity, I can see that it's always whole numbers, so I will format it as a number with 0 decimal places. Destination order type is fine. Percent, let's come back to. Price, I'm going to format as USD. And I think that's fine. And let's take out the average price. And let's take out the P&L. It's best to do it in the query. That way we're not pulling back unnecessary data. There is also specialized formatting that we can create based on column name. If I want to try that with percent, I can do %_SD, and there's a special data bar formatting. And we can get a little data bar that shows the percentage. These are all documented on the website under help and creating tables. So it details how I applied that formatting, and it also mentions how to apply the data bar, as well as other more customized settings. Okay, so we now have a reasonable real-time trade blotter. Let's name it real-time trade blotter. And I can now save my dashboard, exit. It's taken a small screenshot to represent it, and I can go back in to get that exact same dashboard. So there you have a real-time trade blotter in about 2 minutes. Let's now look at creating a historical trade blotter and allowing user interaction. I go back to dashboards, I click the 3 dots, and let's copy the real-time dashboard. I then go into design mode. Let's rename it historic trade blotter. Oh, historic. I'll save a rough draft. And now we want to allow user interaction. So To do that in Pulse, we use user forms. So I click user form, click to position it, and then I can just simply drag the items to resize. And within a form, if I click on the form, you'll see I can add form components, which is one of the buttons here. It's suggesting that I add a date picker, and I can either click over there or over here. So I add a date picker, and the choice of either single date or date ranges. I actually just want a single date, and I can say, yeah, let's pick Thursday. But so far nothing happens. So the important part here is this key. When you select a form, it updates the key. I can now use that key within my select query. So let's take the key my date 1. If I go to the query, so this is meant to select from hist, and that was the real time, but we wanted the historic, so let's do where date equals 2022.12.10. I'm now selecting from the hist table. Let's add the date column so that I can check for sure. So yeah, 2022.12.10. Now what I can do is to get the date from this form into the query, I take my date 1 and I say where date equals in double parenthesis my date 1. And now when I select here, it will update this table. Let's add additional fillers. I can add a drop down. Now you can specify a hard-coded list, so this has New York and London, but we want something dynamic. So click SQL, choose your data source, and select the data you want to allow as a drop-down option. So we want distinct sim from hist, and we'll put it ascending. I will increase the timer because this isn't going to change very often. And you can see that it's now populated with the symbols from the database dynamically. That gives me a drop-down. Let's add order type, and it probably looks like it would be best as a checkbox. So again, I click add it, it becomes in my list of items. Down below is the editor. I select SQL source. I increase it to every 5 minutes because it's not going to change. And this time it's the same select as sim, but this time I'm selecting order type. And I can click the various entries. And I save again. Okay, now this goes back to the keys that become the parameter names. Let's name it something more sensible. So this one is the sim. Let's call it my sim. And this one is the order type. Let's call it my OT. I can now take my sim from the user form and place it into the query by going to the query and saying sim equals, I need to convert it to a symbol, so backtick $, and then double parenthesis my sim. That will now filter on sim, so I'm only getting Amazon. And if I select the order type and go back to the query, sorry, I can take this key and I can say, okay, also filter where order type in, again, I need to cast it from strings, my order type double parenthesis save. And you can see it's now filtering based on order type. And let's add one more final type. Let's add a numeric slider. And we'll call it my size. And we will allow up to 50,000. Again, you take the key, my size, and we place it into the query, and we will filter on quantity is greater than my size, double parentheses. And I can filter that all the way up till it disappears. Let's save our changes. So this is our historic trade blotter. If I now go out, I can see historic trade blotter, and I can click, go back in, and it's saved my query as well. And again, I can filter it to just those entries I'm interested in. So in about 3 minutes, I've went from a real-time trade blotter, I've now created a historic trade blotter that allows user interaction very quickly. One last thing I want to demonstrate, you'll notice that the query has been updating, so sending a new query to the database every time I tick or untick a box. If the query takes particularly long, you may not want to send it every time. To do this, you use a submit button. So again, I click on my form. This will display the list of form components and the editor. This time over the far right, I add a submit button. I take that key and I place it into the query. It doesn't matter where. The key thing that this does is that it will not update the query except when you click submit. So if I save that, you can see that it's now awaiting a submit, and I can toggle the settings and nothing will happen. It's only once I click the submit button, the data gets returned. So it's an efficient way of only sending queries when you want for queries that may take quite a long time to run. Okay, so that was our trade blotter, both real-time and historical. Now I'd like to demonstrate some charts. In particular, I'm going to draw a live price graph. I'm going to only use the trades prices that we already have. I don't want to introduce a new data set. So let's go to dashboards, add a new dashboard. In this case it's kryptonite, and go in and begin editing our dashboard. I want to add a time series graph. Again, it comes up with an automatic default query that is only in memory and doesn't affect your data. And I will select time and price from trades where sim equals FB. Because I'm only selecting one price series, it automatically fills in the area to let us see it better. It is best practice to sort the data coming back to allow the graph to draw in an optimized fashion. And quickly, I've got a price graph for Facebook, or what used to be the ticker for Facebook. If I double click, I can rename that tab FB. And I can add another time series by clicking time series and clicking to drop it. This time I will say Google, Control need to save, and I will rename the tab Google. Oh, I think I updated the wrong one. Let's save Google. I'll go back, fix this one back to Facebook, and we will create one more time series, and let's call it MSFT. Unfortunately, my data is quite randomized. The starting price isn't, so you can see the start prices are different, but they all look a bit similar just because they're random prices. Let's add a slightly different chart. So these were all for one series, which if I click table, you can toggle to see it's just time and price, and that's why it's shading it. Let's do a chart with multiple lines. So again, add time series. The default query out of the box actually shows you Bitcoin and gold, but we want to select from our data. So here I'm selecting MSFT. We will select multiple, so I'll create a function and I will do it on MSFT and Google. So I will perform it each. I then need to join those back. So I will key it on time, then perform a union join over. And actually I also need to rename it. So that will be time and that will be the argument. Let's try that. And I need to take the time sorting outside. So it's sorting the overall result table. And you can see I've now got two series, Google and MSFT. I'll move that down so we can see the query. It's maybe worth mentioning at this point that you can very easily customize these charts. If I wanted to change the color, I simply choose a different area color and I can choose the line color. There are many settings. I can use symbols. I can change from a line to a bar and so on. And because there's quite a lot of settings, you can search here to filter down and change the settings there. Let's save our dashboard. So that's how to create simple time series charts. You can click on almost any of these and it will bring up an example that you can very easily expand upon. One last example I want to demonstrate is a table with per row based highlighting. I click table, drop it where I want it to go. I can reshuffle my existing charts. Again, it's an example query. Let's replace that with select last price by sim from trades. So again, I'm using the same data set and it quickly displays the last price. Let's add last time. I will click and we will format this as a tag so it's easier to read. And let's add last price minus last pre price and call that D, which is the direction that it moves since the last update. You can see I've let it tick there and it is showing the movement. I now want to perform an update to add a new column. I'll first give some example. So where D is greater than 0, we'll say up. Otherwise, if D is less than 0, we will say down. Otherwise, I'll just leave it blank. So we perform an update to add our up-down column. As I mentioned earlier in the demo, there are special column names that we can add to the end that control formatting. So here I can call this price underscore SD, and we can use BG for background or FG for foreground. In this case, it's the background. And let's say up is green and down is red. If I now press Control E, you will see that it's updating with the appropriate color based on that special column. As well as custom formatting, we can even specify the full HTML for the content of a cell. So if I called this dir SD underscore HTML, I can fully control the HTML. And for up, for now, let's say up, and we will blank out the down. And now let's customize this to be HTML. So I can say image source equals timestored.com slash up.png. If I run it now, I get a custom image for up. And you can insert any HTML that you want into that cell, allowing you full customization. Finally, we delete the D column to tidy it up, and we will save. Let's rename this My Charts. Save the changes. If I now go back out to dashboards, you can see it's created a small screenshot for my dashboard. And if I click, it takes me back to the exact data I had. One other feature worth mentioning, if I go back out to dashboards, I can click on the three dots and I can view dashboard history. And if for some reason I've made a mistake and deleted something or changed the query that I don't want, I can restore any of the old versions. So I can first preview and I can see that this old version that didn't have the coloring. And if I wanted, I could restore that version. And you can see the coloring's gone. So it's just useful in case you make a mistake to undo it. The last thing I won't have time to cover in detail, but you can see it in our contained examples, is the TAQ chart, the trading quote. So if I click into it, you can see that it's a highly customized chart that has the bid and ask as a line, and then it has the hedges and the buy and sells of clients as a variable size circle or triangle. So similar to what we saw for the per row customization of tabular data in the grid, you can highly customize the graph to allow you to show trading quote data. And you can see that within our demo. To recap, Pulse is a tool for real-time data visualization, particularly well suited to trader dashboards, particularly for context and positions. In this demo, I showed how we can create a real-time trade blotter, a historic trade blotter that allows user input to filter. I demonstrated creating stock price charts and a customized table format with highlighting per row in our latest price display. I never got a chance to demonstrate in detail the trading quote chart, but it is available within the demo. As I showed, you can download the demo from the website, give it a try, and email us any of your feedback. We've been moving extremely fast to date. In July was our initial release. Since then, every month we had added significant functionality, new charts, new forms, and we're continuing to move at that pace. On our roadmap for the upcoming future is dual axis charts, more grid customization, and better Python integration, highly likely. We decide our roadmap based on user input. So download Pulse, give it a try, let us know what you want or need, and we'll build it. Thanks. I hope you find this interesting.